Welcome to the forensic linguistic analysis of the Donna Adelson sentencing allocution, which, if you haven't seen, is absolutely fascinating. Because during this sentencing, for which she received life without parole and a 30-year sentence too, consecutive to life without parole, she lands somebody else, essentially Wendi, right in it. What she says, and we're going to listen to this very carefully, she says, I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. Now, if you think about that, I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. When we analyze that as a statement analyst in forensic linguistics, what that actually means is that she's admitting that I didn't know the other conspirators were planning this. And then take this one step further. What that accidentally admits is that there are other conspirators and she has awareness of a group. Essentially, she has just landed Wendi right in it, and we're going to be analyzing this forensic linguistically. Let's listen to what she says first of all, and then we'll go through the transcript bit by bit. If you're new to statement analysis and you're new to forensic linguistics, by learning this, you're going to be able to spot deception and lies in your own life. And if you've ever been deceived or gaslighted or suspect that you have, understanding how statement analysis works is really going to bring that into focus for you. So let's carry on. Let's see what she has to say. It's quite fascinating. There is hardly any remorse at all. And I think if you are in any doubt whatsoever as to her guilt, this is going to show the sort of woman that she is.
Okay. Is this loud enough, Judge?
I can hear you.
Thank you for letting me speak. My son-in-law, Dan Markel, was a fine and decent man. He was well educated and passionate about his career. He was a good son-in-law, but more importantly, he was a caring and loving father. On July 18th, 2014, his car was followed, leaving his home. It should have been just like any other day, an ordinary day in the life of Ben and Lincoln's father, but it wasn't. He didn't know when he left his boys off at daycare that would be the last time he would see them, and the last time they would see him. He didn't know when he went to the gym afterwards that would be the last time he would exercise. And he didn't know when he drove home that his life would end within minutes. Danny wasn't just being followed, he was being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car, in his garage, by vicious killers. I cannot imagine the terror he felt when he saw a gun pointed at him through the window of his car. I cannot conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack. Danny died in the early morning hours of July 19th. His death is a loss to his children, his parents, his sister, all of us in his family, his friends, his colleagues in the legal community, and to his students at FSU Law School. Danny's boys each have a photo of themselves with their Abba, their dad, beside their beds. They grew up kissing the framed photo and saying, "Good night, Abba, I love you." The pictures and memories are all they have because cruel, cold-hearted people took him from all of us who loved him. My heart was broken when Danny died. My grandsons were going to grow up without the father who loved them. I wondered, how could we help these boys through this trauma? It was then that my husband and I knew that the best way to honor Danny's memory would be to share with these children an abundance of love, the love that Danny would have given them if he were alive. It is interesting how the state can't make up its mind about who is what they call the, quote, mastermind behind this murder. In both of Catherine Magbanaw's trials, the state claims she was the mastermind behind Danny's murder.
Notice the tonality change after she's done the bit that in her own mind, in her own evil mind, what she has to do, she's now switched to what she really wants to do. Did you notice the volume, tonality, and pitch change once she'd got that part of what she feels she has to do at first out of the way, and now what she really wants to say?
In my son Charlie Adelson's trial, they claimed he was the mastermind. And now in my trial, they claimed that I, this grandma, was the mastermind behind the murder. I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be.
Let's just concentrate on that one sentence. I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And we're going to analyze that in detail. Because an innocent person might say, I had no idea anyone planned this. But other people creates an implicit group at forensic linguistic detail. It's like saying, as I said before, I didn't know the other conspirators were planning this. And so by accidentally admitting that there are other conspirators or other people, she shows awareness of the group. We'll look at that in detail.
But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place. If I had become aware of this plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it.
And unconsciously, that shows the ability to affect the outcome. Can you see how at the forensic level, and we'll be going into detail on this so that you can, she's essentially doing embedded confessions and putting the other people that she mentions. I had no idea that other people plan to cut Danny's life short. So she also gets the tense wrong, I believe. And I think she's putting Wendi right into the frame. But then again, Wendi put her in the frame, didn't she? And her brother.
Not one iota of actual evidence. The state convinced a Tallahassee jury that I solicited and conspired with other people to have Danny killed. Where is the evidence prior to the murder?
That's interesting, isn't it? So guilty people, in their anger and their frustration, they ask for the evidence in certain sections of the crime, almost as if because in her opinion you haven't proved a certain section of the crime, therefore the entire crime I'm now innocent of. And this is what they do in their cognitive dissonance, in their extreme narcissistic and evil behavior. This is the sort of attitude that they have.
The evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the state needed to prove their case. Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 in the morning?
Before you continue, Mrs. Adelson.
Yeah, and she's very specific about the murder time. Now, luckily, the judge has had enough of her rubbish and interferes.
As it relates to this statement, is the defense trying to re-argue the trial?
No, Judge, just giving Mrs. Adelson an opportunity to be heard.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. Please proceed if you desire to do so.
Notice the complete disdain, little shake of the head, as she completely ignores the judge and then just carries on with her rant.
Here's the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 a.m. that revealed that I had any involvement in this vile and horrific act. Where is the solicitation and conspiracy evidence? The state needed to show that there was evidence before.
Also notice that there's no reliable denial. She is picking periods of time of the evidence.
The murder to convict me. The state couldn't show that because there wasn't any evidence. They were trying an innocent person.
Notice she can't say the clear words, I'm innocent, I am innocent. She can't say it. What she does is she calls herself the grandmother, or whatever the words were to that effect, and an innocent person. She cannot commit, and if she cannot commit, we cannot commit for her. She is guilty, she has been found guilty. And not only that, in this section of the trial, and she's not under oath, but in this allocution, she puts her daughter Wendi right in the frame, in my opinion, with that other people phrase that she used.
It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when the state had
And now she insults the jury.
Sergeant Corbett on the stand for hours. Their own star witness testified that my phone was never, I repeat, never at my son's house on the night of the murder. The state's theory that my husband and I dropped off money to my son was blown out of the water by their own witness. And yet...
Look at that disgusting facial expression she used. Now, it might well be the case. It might well be the case that her phone wasn't present because, you know, who would bring the phone with you? But to pick that single piece of evidence, which has obviously annoyed her, because maybe that part, I don't know, I've not watched the trial. But the point is, when somebody is guilty, they're always picky on small, tiny bits of evidence. Normally bits of evidence that annoys them. Or angers them in some way, as opposed to the overall fact that she's guilty and doesn't claim reliably innocence.
The state continued to push that story, that lie of the so-called money drop, to the jury through the remainder of the trial. And the jury bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. Reasonable doubt. Many months ago, my attorneys filed a motion for a change of venue. An expert witness testified that Tallahassee had been barraged with over 9 years of negative social media, printed news, television news, and podcast publicity about my family. He explained to the court, both with evidence and demonstratives, that for me to receive a fair trial, it needed to be held in any of the researched and designated areas in the state of Florida other than Tallahassee. All I wanted was a level playing field, but the court wanted the trial here in the hotbed of...
She didn't want to be proven innocent. She wanted a level playing field.
Tallahassee. I sat through 3 days of jury selection. 180 potential jurors were asked if they had developed an opinion in my case. Those that answered yes also added, I believe she is guilty. Not one person, not one, said, I think she may be innocent.
What does that tell you?
That should have been a clue to the court to grant our motion for a change of venue. But the court denied the motion. One of my jurors admitted during jury selection that she had background information concerning what one of the state's witnesses would be testifying about. Why was she allowed to be on my jury?
What moment?
Another juror.
Mrs. Fulford,
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Mr. Zellman, again, this has nothing to do with allocution of any sort. This is a raising of grievances which are properly given to the appellate court. What does any of this have to do with sentencing?
Just one moment, please.
Please.
What happened to Danny is unforgivable. But I am an innocent woman convicted of this terrible crime without evidence. Danny was a brilliant legal scholar. He would have been appalled at the total lack of justice that went on during my trial. He would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. There are two crimes here. The first was Danny being viciously murdered. The second one is taking my life, the life of an innocent woman. Convicting me should not be retribution for Danny's death. That is not justice for Dan. I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit. I do intend to file an appeal so that hopefully I have the opportunity to be given a fair trial outside.
Now, sometimes guilty people can give a statement like, a murder I did not commit. Let's not forget the hitmen pulled the trigger. In this individual's mind, she can, through cognitive dissonance, she can say that and believe it inside her sick mind. However, she cannot deny her involvement categorically or reliably.
Of Tallahassee. 11 years ago, Danny was murdered and taken from all of us who loved him. For the past 9.5 years, the state has broadcast to the world, including Danny's parents and sister, that I hired hitmen to kill him. Never in a million years would I have wanted Danny to be harmed or killed.
Never in a million years is a phrase that her daughter, Wendi Adelson, also uses. It's an extremely common phrase when someone is being deceptive. Never in a million years, they say. And of course, that leaves at the unconscious level the possibility that in 1,000,001 years, you did in fact do it. Never in a million years. It's a phrase her daughter uses too. I imagine her daughter Wendi has learned the gaslighting and manipulation, and her personality, I suspect, has been affected by this individual over the decades. In my opinion, both of them extremely sick.
They ever do something that would leave these two small boys to grow up without him. I love these boys more than life itself. This is a lifetime of loss for these children. They didn't deserve this. His family didn't deserve this. Danny didn't deserve this. And so, as I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
Yes, you were. Life without the possibility of parole plus 30 years, and you deserve every single day. And as a witness said in your trial, I hope you live until 120. So let's go through the actual statement analysis, and we'll go through reasonably slowly, and we'll see what we can see at a forensic level. So in case you don't understand the allocution, and I didn't under American law precisely, so I've put this here. And the reason why the judge interfered, it's to express remorse for the crime and its impact on the victims. It's to accept responsibility now that you've been found guilty. or explain one's role honestly. It's to humanize oneself to a degree. She's just embarrassed herself. It's to acknowledge the victim. She has in a way, but through a narcissistic manner, and to provide some form of context. What it's not is to retrial, to relitigate, to argue the technicalities, to blame the jury, to blame the system, to blame the court. It's not that. And the judge told her specifically, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. What did she do? Shook her head at the stupid judge in her mind and carried on with her rant. So, we will look at Adelson's husband, Dr. Harvey Adelson, later, and we'll look at his statement. But it wasn't half as bad as Donna's. So, in the opening, to be fair, she does what is expected. And we have a full introduction, a full social introduction, which we look for in statement analysis. And it is correct. But in my eyes, she's just getting it out of the way before she can carry on with the rant. It is linguistically appropriate for the allocution. However, the reason why I think she's just getting it out of the way is it's cold. There's no real personal memories, no anecdotes, there's no real emotion. It's generic. It could be about anyone. Describing the murder, the critical distancing moment. On July the 18th, 2014, his car was followed, leaving his home. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car in his garage by vicious killers. Danny died in the early morning hours of July 19th. His death is a loss to his children, his parents, his sister, all of us, and his family. At the exact moment of describing Dan's death, the emotional apex of any allocution, Adelson psychologically ejects herself from the statement. The children become his children rather than maintaining any connection to her as my grandchildren. His parents become just his parents, not Dan's parents, Ruth and Phil. There's no personalizing. And we'll notice how she moves on from the correct linguistics to gradually, as her anger and venom builds, we'll see the linguistics change. The grandchildren reclaiming, then distancing. She reclaims when discussing her emotional response. She reclaims them when discussing her role in their lives. But they were his children when describing the loss of their father. So she begins to shift. Watch the language progression. My grandsons, these boys, these children. In statement analysis, we watch for a change in language. And by the end of her allocution, she refers to them as these two small boys. So the distance becomes maximized as it progresses. The mastermind mockery instead of denial. Did you notice? She doesn't deny, she mocks and blames the jury and blames the location. Here she says, it is interesting. Look, opening with it is interesting is editorial language. It's detached, it's analytical, it's academic, it's inappropriate. She's analyzing the prosecution's strategy rather than actually addressing the victim or expressing any remorse. We see the narcissism and evil attitude, the arrogance displayed. So she distances herself from the term through mockery. She treats it as ridiculous terminology, implies inconsistency in the prosecution's theory. I believe there's a short video of Wendi talking about another legal case where there's a matriarch mastermind. We'll see if we can find that for a later video. She doesn't actually deny being involved in the conspiracy. I, this grandma. Do you remember this? The phrase, I, this grandma. Self-reference analysis. So she shifts from the first person I to this grandma. So she creates psychological distance from herself, whilst attempting to invoke this grandmotherly identity as a shield. She's an evil killer, a narcissistic evil killer. That's what she is. Trying to invoke this grandmother shield when this is the stage where she's supposed to be having a level of acceptance and remorse. She just continues with the gaslighting. Like her daughter, in my opinion. What she doesn't say. She doesn't say, I did not plan or arrange Dan's murder. She's never clear. Everything's hedged. There's no clear, proper denial. Unless it's to do with the pulling of the trigger, there's no clear denial. And of course, she didn't pull the trigger. There are structural problems in her denials. No clear, reliable denial whatsoever. This horrible, evil act, vague, distancing. As you watch the VEROSCOPE analysis videos, and we've got Wendi's police video, most of it already done now, you'll see similar patterns. Once you know the deception patterns, you can see it again and again and again. It's fascinating. I'm looking forward to analysing the actual trials themselves and breaking them down forensic linguistically. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And we're also going to be covering the live. Well, if Wendi is arrested shortly, and I believe that she will be at some point, we'll be covering that live and in detail. Yeah, time is important. Her argument becomes detailed and specific in areas that have annoyed her. This is the murder time. And she's demanding evidence before the murder. It's strategic framing. She's almost saying, yes, but you haven't got me in the actual planning before the murder, as opposed to a proper denial. She knows the crime occurred in stages. Oh, by the way, I'm about to record the part of Wendi's police interview where she speaks to her mother. That's extremely interesting. The murder time and Donna's response to her daughter Wendi in the police station. It's quite chilling, actually. I think Wendi thinks she's going to get away with this, and I don't. Yeah, she's very sensitive about the phone evidence. It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping. The arrogance of this woman. Never, I repeat, never. It's very sensitive to her. She's got priority inversions. As you run through the VEROSCOPE videos, a lot more of this will make sense. If this is the first time that you've seen forensic linguistics, perhaps some of it, as you're reading, doesn't make complete sense, but it will over time. It will over time. So, for instance, the structural problems. We like to see in a statement 25% introduction background, 50% main event, 25% aftermath conclusion. And where we see differences in this which are significant, we would put a deceptive marker in and say there's a structural problem in the statement. Individual flags don't necessarily mean anything by themselves, but overall, if we have a structural problem, we'll have noted that. So as an example, in deception, very often the aftermath or conclusion is a tiny percentage. In other words, the person's delivered the lie and wants to get the hell out of Dodge. So we'll see this as a small percentage. And also because they don't want to say the lie, they'll often do the introduction, the background, the rambling, the waffling, for a huge percentage, deliver the lie, and then get the hell out of it. Whereas in a truthful statement, we'll often see this sort of percentage. So if you learn anything today, look out for this in statements, written statements in particular. And the structure will often tell you what's going on. We'll go into detail about the words per line, the words per hour. That can also help, but not today. If it speeds up or slows down in certain sections, but not today. So, the court intervenes, doesn't it? She's given the warning. She completely ignores the judge. She just doesn't care. She wants what she wants, and she's going to say it no matter what. Reminds me of someone. Wendi. It's complaints. This is not the time. This was Dan's time. But your arrogance and your evilness and your gaslighting and your narcissistic behavior took away Dan's time. The judge didn't really want to give her this time, but he did. I think he had to under case law. Unsworn testimony, essentially. This is interesting. The two crimes. There are two crimes here. The first was him being viciously murdered, in effect. But from her point of view, taking my life. So she sees the crime as her life being taken. This is the arrogance. I was going to say the arrogance of the witch, but obviously I need to maintain some decorum. But it is, isn't it? It's the absolute arrogance of the witch. We have retribution framing. This is very, very interesting, and I think We look at embedded confessions and embedded admissions in statement analysis and forensic linguistics. It's more common than you would think. The person unconsciously admits it and unconsciously puts the other people involved in the conspiracy, the group, into the frame as well. Now, retribution is her word. By framing her conviction as retribution, she's inadvertently acknowledging a causal connection between Dan's death and her prosecution. Can you see? It's a word that she chose. Retribution. An innocent person doesn't see it as retribution. If you're in any doubt about her guilt, from all of the evidence, here we have in her own words, her own evil mind, the embedded admission. And my conviction is retribution for Dan's death. That's what she tells us. Can you see that? In her sick mind, she's competing with Dan as the victim. She has a high level of arrogance with cognitive distortion about who actually suffered the harm. It's not just tone deaf, she, at a deep, unconscious level, this woman, this is why I say she's sick. She actually believes that she's the victim here, having had this young man murdered, his life stolen from him. He trained at Harvard, where he studied law and went on to become a law professor. Unfortunately, he met the gaslighter from hell and married her, in my opinion, which led to all of this. Yeah, it's the audacity of the woman. We always look for change in language. Never in a million years. This really stuck out for me, especially with the fact that Wendi herself has used this phrase. Never in a million years. It's normally deceptive. You might have said it or heard it said yourself. Never. Never in a million years. We always look at this word. It's almost always deceptive. Unless the question, have you ever, in which case ever, never in the answer is acceptable. But if the question has not been asked, have you ever, when we see never in a statement, it's almost always deceptive as a marker. We see this in liars a lot. They choose something like this. I've never even got a parking ticket. You're being tried for murder and found guilty. It's absolute rubbish. But it's common. They'll often do it. Okay, so that brings us towards the end of this analysis. If we see Wendi arrested shortly, then we'll be certainly following that case. So please do subscribe. We'll be looking at her forensic linguistics in more detail as well. And do look at the police interview of Wendy's Veroscope analysis on the channel. I've put it into a playlist. Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to the end of today's Veroscope analysis. And I look forward to speak with you in the comments. What a fascinating sentencing allocution from Donna Adelson today. Okay, look forward to chat to you in the comments.